What's up guys, Deroir here and welcome to another episode of Hype Time. This time I figured I'd share my thoughts and speculations on something that got me very excited, the new PvP mode, Stronghold. Now the fact of the matter is that not much has actually been said about this subject yet. And so what we have to work with is a few quotes and two very similar trailers. And even though there's not a whole lot of concrete information so far, I realize that the very sporadic information we have still provides great cause for speculation. And so I actually have a lot to say about Stronghold and the possibilities that this map might give to the PvP community. Not just the added diversity to the PvP scene, but also the huge potential that this map has for the esports scene. To start this analysis off, I figured I'd share a quote from Colin Johansson with you guys that outlines the background and the thought process of what Stronghold is. Stronghold is our brand new game mode. It takes inspiration from the GVG game mode and from Fort Aspenwood game mode from the original Guild Wars. It draws a little bit of inspiration from MOBAs and from what made Guild Wars 2 such a great PvP game. Now these three game modes are very distinct in their own way. Back in Guild Wars 1, GVG or Guild vs Guild was a very popular PvP mode, wherein two teams of 8 players each would compete to defeat the enemy's lord. Back in the days, this game type had a wide variety of maps to play in, each with their own advantage and layouts. One major feature for all GVG maps though was the flag stand, which would yield morale boost, giving health and energy regeneration for 2 minutes. This advantage was something many teams dedicated flag runners to constantly refresh. Fort Aspenwood on the other hand was a competitive mission that was introduced with Guild Wars factions, and so played on the relationship between the Kursic and the Luxans. Here the two factions would have different objectives to complete in order to win. The Kursics, for example, would have to defend Architect Gunther while he was building his weapon, all the while gathering materials so that he could actually progress this. The invading team on the other hand, the Luxans, would actually then have to kill Gunther before he could complete this. Simple as that really. Lastly, we have the MOBA genre. This game type is to date one of the most popular in modern gaming. And so I'll go more into detail with this, since this seems to be the more comprised and improved version of what the GVG, Fort Aspenwood, and a whole string of other games from different developers had to offer. Now the acronym MOBA means Multiplayer Online Battle Arena, which with those words could encompass a lot of games, but was actually created to distinguish a very specific game type. Among some of the most popular MOBAs we have League of Legends, Heroes of Newerth, and Dota. Every one of these games includes 2 teams of 5 players each, and each match averages a time of 20 to 40 minutes. Where Guild Wars 2 offers match diversity with now 9 different professions, each with their own playstyle and build possibilities, regular MOBAs include an ever-expanding variety of so-called heroes to play as, which all offer great diversity in every match. The way that these games work is that each team has a base, which is where shops and spawn points are located. The middle of your base consists of the object which you want to defend. The objective is to work with your team to breach the enemy's base and destroy their ancient, Moneyball, Nexus, TV, or whatever. Each map consists of 3 narrow sections of open road called lanes, connecting your base with the enemy base. On these lanes, as well as inside the bases of each team, there are several defensive towers located, which are associated with either team. Also, both teams have generic creeps that periodically spawn from your base to charge and pressure your enemy. And apart from these creeps, the map is littered with monsters, bosses, and mercenaries scattered in the area referred to as the jungle. Jungle can also provide important strategic map maneuvering, usually referred to as ganking. And so all these things considered, you'd be stupid to just charge into your opponent's base from the very start. That would just get you killed and leave your chat box full of hate. So before you charge in, you'll have to acquire experience and gold, both of which can be gained from killing enemy players, creeps, and monsters around the map. Experience is used to level up your hero, which allows for your skills to expand during game time. And the gold is used to purchase items or upgrades for yourself or your team, collectively resulting in increasing the overall power and skill sets necessary to win the fight. MOBAs in particular have a rather high learning curve due to the diversity in the playable heroes, the shop items, and the overall map mechanics. Inherently, the learning curve of Guild Wars 2's PvP only factors in 2 of these things, wherein the build diversity of your character is determined by yourself though, and can be tested elsewhere. The other factor to consider is the map mechanics of each of the PvP maps. But given the fact that only one map will be added to Stronghold with the launch of Heart of Thorns, the steepness of this part of the curve should be rather possible to grasp. Well, now that we've got an overall impression of what the idea behind Stronghold was, it's time to actually look at Stronghold itself. With all these things in mind, let's do a quick map run through and overlook as it looks to me. Now what we have to work with for this run through is a data mined map and 2 trailers released just a couple days ago. And so let's try to combine the knowledge that we can gather from all of this. The map itself looks quite vertical with the huge mountain on the side. Also, the general feel of the map, the ship in the background, the wooden versus the stone structures seem to portray a scene of pirates invading or plundering a village. Anyways, the first thing I have to point out is which side belongs to which color. Looking at the orientation of the mill as shown in the video, angled closest to the blue entrance, we can assume that that mill is located right here, and so blue is on our left and red is on our right. Going with this thought, rewinding the video a bit, we see the 2 possible spawn points of each team. Red team spawn possibly being this location, marked off with the presence of a big ship, wooden structures, and a faint red glow in the background. The appropriate location would be right here then. The blue spawn point would then be this location, represented with a waypoint, a rock wall, and stone structures. The suitable location would then be right here. Next up is the location of the trebuchets. As seen here, the curved terrain and stairs indicate that the red treb would be located right here. By the way, there's one thing to note in this short clip. The treb seems to be unmanned and automated, which is something we've not yet been familiarized with. Anyway, if we assume that the map is somewhat mirrored on each side, that would put the blue treb right here. As for the locations of the lords on each team, we only have the piratey red lord to look at. Surrounded by the wooden structures, here we see a small wall of crates, possibly being this structure, which would then put the lord at this exact location. As for the blue lord, mirroring the red half seems to create 2 possible locations, though I would argue that this location seems to be the most plausible. Adding the gates which are indicated in the trailer, we seem to only have 2 gates on either fort. Some people would perhaps argue that there might be one more gate inside both forts. But looking at the most plausible gate location on the red half, we see from the lord's perspective that there doesn't seem to be any remains of a door. So let's just scrap the idea of 3 doors, shall we? Getting the basic map layout out of the way, we can perhaps start to discuss the map mechanics which might be included in Stronghold. The fundamental concept behind the game is to find and kill the enemy's guild lord in their stronghold, and along the way your team will fight for and gather supplies. You can spend supplies to hire troops that march towards your enemy's stronghold. You can man a trebuchet to defend your own stronghold. And occasionally heroes will appear on the battlefield that you can fight for control over. Whichever team wins them over, the hero joins their side and joins the assault on the enemy stronghold. Within the stronghold there are gates you need to bash your way down to fight your way inside. And when you're all the way in the heart of the stronghold, you can kill the lord and win. It seems now that there will be 3 major things involved in taking on the enemy's fort. First off, we have the acquisition of supplies, which is possibly indicated by this little logo on top of the players. At the spawn we see that the players only have 1 barrel above their head, but in later game we see that some players now have 2. Just like the world vs world supplies which you load up on from camps and carry with you, it seems that the same thing is carried into this game mode. Some important questions regarding supplies though would be just how much can you carry? Can you steal from the enemies you kill? And just how is supply generated? Perhaps that's what the center area mainly will be, a supply generator. And so this place will essentially be where the main battle will take place. Because where the MOBA genre has gold, it seems that supply will be the currency of Stronghold. But where MOBAs have items to purchase, we have the option of buying troops to march to the enemy's gate, which in theory resembles the creeps from the MOBA genre. An example of troops might be these Skrit marching to the gate with bombs in their hands. Now, as troops and supply seem to have such a huge importance to this game mode, does this possibly indicate that the gates in Stronghold will be just as tough as the world vs world gates, or close to it? That assumption would render a full frontal attack from early game practically useless, and reinforce the need for supply to send out troops to do the dirty work. The question is then, just how much firepower will these Skrits have, and what other option for troops will we have, if any? So we've now established why supply is so important. Well then, what would stop both teams from spending the majority of their time in the central area? Controlling your own trebuchet as well as destroying the enemy's treb, along with the acquisition of helpful heroes, should all be major factors into gaining the overall upper hand. I believe the positioning of all these heroes will be scattered across this map, though we have no examples of what a hero might be. For all we know, this guy might come to life as a hero. As a final note to this part of the video, I'd like to point out the much different map design than we've seen before for PvP. Most notable to this design, we have the aforementioned mountainside, along with this spiritual waterfall. Most likely this is just a gimmick to the map design, but maybe the mountain might provide an advantage like the skyhammer use from an off-map position, or perhaps an extended gameplay area for the acquisition of heroes. The more interesting thing I noted with the map design though was all these houses and structures located around the map, providing cover and various hiding places just like we saw with the jungle area in the MOBA genre. That would provide great options for ganking your enemy. So now that we have the base game mode covered, I want to discuss one thing with you guys, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this. I'm talking about party size. The most common argument I hear about the already established and well-functioning 5-man party size is that GVG had 8-man parties, which was great, and we already have a 5-man PvP mode. Now I get the fact that a lot of players will want to play with more than just 5 of your guildmates, since guild teams and the guild leaderboards will be in addition to the ladder for individual players. But hear me out for a second. As we've established in this video, there will be a lot of factors to mine throughout a Stronghold match. Supplies, troops, heroes, traps, and so on. But that doesn't necessarily imply that more people should be needed. On the contrary, a very basic tactic in any given MOBA would be 1 player in the top lane, 1 mid, 2 bottom, and 1 roaming the jungle. Now why is that? Well, with so many factors to adjust for, a proper delegation of the work is needed. With all the variables to account for in a Stronghold match, the same sort of strategic work delegation will be needed in a well-balanced team size. With a 5-man group, this would be very interesting to watch, especially if we're talking esports, as the success of a team then wouldn't just be seeing how many people we could gather at the center for slaughter, but rather seeing how well a given team would manage their offensive as well as their defensive maneuvering on the map, being at the right locations at the right times with the right amount of people to hold the important fronts. If on the other hand an 8-man team were to be introduced to this, and even split of 4 individual groupings of 2 team members would make strategizing a minor factor to an otherwise very interesting game mode, since you could basically be everywhere at all times with more than 1 team member. Conquest is already a rather clustered scene to watch as an esport. Perhaps its introduction of various objectives might incentivize proper strategizing. I am a strong advocate for a 5-man team in Stronghold, but what about you guys? What party size would you like to see? And please do tell me why that is in the comments down below. Now that's all I had for you guys this time. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, I will see you in the mists.